But I mean, Ciryl Gane, who's 6'5", 247 pounds, moves like a 170-pounder. It's crazy. He's bouncing like Wonder Boy, like bouncing like this the entire fight, bouncing, throwing feints, like completely changed the standard of heavyweight striking.
Joe Rogan has just reacted to Ciryl Gane's latest training footage ahead of his massive showdown with Alex Pereira at the UFC White House Card. And while most of the MMA world continues focusing on Pereira's frightening knockout power and superstar aura, there is a growing belief that people may be overlooking the one fighter capable of completely disrupting the story the UFC seems to be building. That fighter is Ciryl Gane. What's interesting about this matchup is that the conversation has largely revolved around what happens if Pereira wins. Fans are already imagining future title fights, they're imagining heavyweight championship runs, they're imagining the possibility of Pereira eventually standing across from Tom Aspinall in one of the biggest fights the UFC could possibly make.
Talk to me about Ciryl Gane, Alex Pereira.
First of all, Alex Pereira, he's an absolute generational talent. If he wins this fight, even though it's an interim title, it'll be the first person ever to win 3 different weights, which is unbelievable. He carries a lot of power at light, heavy and middle, but he's also fighting a lot smaller guys. A big factor of why he's knocking these guys out is because he's a lot bigger than him. Ciryl Gane is a massive heavyweight who moves a lot. So stylistically, I think it's a good matchup for Gane.
Which way are you going?
I would say Gane by points. I want revenge, of course.
I spoke to Rico, the kickboxing champion, getting ready to take on, how do you say his name? Usyk?
Alexander Usyk. Alexander, yeah.
And as a striking expert, and Rico said 9 out of 10 times Ciryl would beat Pereira if it was straight up kickboxing rules. He said 9 out of 10 times Ciryl would beat him. He's just too big of a man.
I definitely think it's stylistic, but him fighting Gane is perfect. Like, it's going to be a stand-up battle. He's got the size and the height for it. So it's like this. If anyone's like, if there's a time to do it, and like we were trying to put chips in play, that would be the fight to make. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's going to be a striking fight for 5 rounds, and Pereira is probably the more technical striker. You know, more comfortable striker, especially when it comes to MMA. Yeah, triple champ, why not?
The hype has become so intense that many people seem to be treating Gane as little more than the next obstacle standing in Pereira's path. The problem is that Ciryl Gane has spent his entire career proving that overlooking him is a dangerous mistake. That's one of the reasons Joe Rogan and so many analysts continue pointing toward this fight as one of the most intriguing matchups on the entire card. Pereira's strengths are obvious. Everybody knows about the left hook, everybody knows about the knockout power, everybody knows about the ability to completely change a fight with a single opening. What makes this matchup fascinating is that Gane possesses many of the attributes that could make finding those openings far more difficult than people expect. For a heavyweight, Gane moves in a way that almost doesn't seem natural, his footwork is exceptional, his ability to manage distance is exceptional, and his understanding of positioning allows him to create problems that many opponents struggle to solve.
And I'm not exaggerating. I watched it 3 times. I watched it today, in fact. I watched it in the gym today while I was working out.
So better than like in Gane, in terms of movement, in terms of he's like the best moving heavyweight?
There's no question he is the best moving heavyweight I've ever seen. No question. The best moving.
Did he feel and look like a heavyweight when you stood opposite him?
Yeah, he looked really like an heavyweight, and he's not too surprised because that's really interesting what I say, guys. Listen, we did already a face-off there 2 or 3 years ago. He came to France, in Paris, in RS. It was a pleasure to have him, and I knew already it's going to be big. He was already big, and the real question is how he did to make the weight for the middleweight. This is the real question.
Ciryl, do you feel that Alex Pereira is a tougher fight for you than Tom Aspinall was?
Completely different fight. Like Alex Pereira is a beautiful striker, one of the best in the UFC. I think Thomas Midal is more well-rounded, with a different skill. It's going to be completely different. Like I fought already some huge guy, huge champion, but it's going to be completely different than Tom.
Rather than standing directly in front of dangerous punchers and giving them the exchanges they want, Gane often forces opponents into a frustrating chase, constantly adjusting angles and forcing them to think before they attack. That's where this fight becomes so interesting. The question isn't whether Pereira has the power to hurt Gane, because everybody already knows the answer to that. The real question is whether Pereira can consistently put himself in the positions required to land those shots against someone whose entire style is built around movement, control, and making elite fighters look uncomfortable. Judging by the latest footage coming out of camp, Gane appears to understand exactly what is waiting for him. There is a noticeable sharpness to everything he's doing. The movement looks crisp, the timing looks sharp. More importantly, he looks like a fighter who understands that one performance could completely change the direction of his career. That's a powerful source of motivation. A victory over Alex Pereira wouldn't simply add another big name to his resume. It would immediately place him back at the center of the heavyweight conversation and force the entire MMA world to start looking at the division differently. Instead of discussing Pereira's path toward future super fights, people would suddenly be talking about Gane's resurgence and whether he has finally put himself back in position to challenge for the biggest opportunities available. That's why the stakes feel so enormous. Both men are fighting for much more than a single win. They're fighting for momentum, relevance, future opportunities, and potentially a place in some of the biggest fights the UFC can make over the next few years. That's what separates this matchup from a normal contender fight. The winner doesn't just move forward, the winner could dramatically reshape the future of the division. What's particularly fascinating is how Gane's style compares with some of the challenges we've seen Pereira face in the past. Throughout combat sports history, devastating knockout artists have often looked their most dangerous when opponents are willing to engage directly with them. Fighters who move well, manage distance effectively, and remain disciplined for long periods can create a completely different set of problems because they force the power puncher to think rather than simply react. That doesn't mean Gane is guaranteed success. Far from it. Pereira has repeatedly shown that he only needs a brief moment to completely alter the course of a fight. That's why he's become one of the most feared fighters in combat sports.
It's going to be an interesting fight though. I think Alex Pereira is very tough. He's big enough. He's a heavyweight. But in this scenario, the position shifted a little bit because Ciryl Gane here come more with a strategy of a lighter person because he moves a lot. He's fast and this. And I think Alex Pereira will be like more stiff, stable and strong, solid. Ciryl will be more fast, moving around, as is his technique. He's good at that. And then it's going to be very difficult to Alex Pereira to even get close to the distance to figure out what he can do to close that distance, which Ciryl will be managing very good to keep the distance, pick apart, get him frustrated. He's good at that. So I think he's a very good matchup for Ciryl.
Opponents can be winning rounds, executing game plans, and doing almost everything correctly before suddenly finding themselves staring at the lights. Few fighters possess the ability to generate that kind of danger every second they're inside the cage. The challenge for Gane is maintaining discipline for as long as the fight lasts, while resisting the temptation to get drawn into the type of exchanges Pereira thrives in. The challenge for Pereira is almost the exact opposite. He needs to find a way to close distance, create opportunities, and force Gane into situations where his power can become the deciding factor. That's why so many fans are struggling to predict what happens. On one side, you have one of the most devastating finishers in the sport. On the other, you have one of the most technically gifted and mobile heavyweights of his generation. When styles contrast this dramatically, strange things often happen. The UFC White House Card already carries enormous expectations, but this fight feels particularly important because of what it could mean for everyone involved. Pereira is trying to continue one of the most remarkable runs in combat sports. Gane is trying to remind the world why he was once viewed as one of the most dangerous men in the heavyweight division. Meanwhile, the UFC is hoping the fight delivers the type of performance capable of elevating the entire event. Looking at the latest training footage, there is a growing sense that Gane believes this moment belongs to him, not because he's underestimating Pereira, not because he isn't aware of the danger, but because he genuinely appears convinced that his skill set presents problems many people haven't fully considered. Joe Rogan has often spoken about how dangerous elite fighters become when preparation, confidence, and opportunity collide at exactly the right moment. Watching Ciryl Gane prepare for this fight, it's easy to understand why some fans believe he may be approaching that point right now. The closer we get to fight night, the more difficult this matchup becomes to predict. Everybody knows what Alex Pereira can do. The real mystery is whether Ciryl Gane has quietly become the fighter capable of stopping him. And if he has, the entire future of the heavyweight division could look very different by the end of the night.